So question number 2 was, how do you think about prepping and cooking a menu with a lot of elements efficiently? Do I collapse common tasks? Is there a lot of concurrency or a lot of waste? So I grew up in a lot of these restaurants with the philosophy that ingredients don't repeat on the menu. The French Laundry per se's menu changed every single day. Grace was the same way. It's like we had a vegetable menu and a omnivore menu with meat and vegetables, and no ingredients were repeated at all. I mean, obviously, like some things like garlic and onion and black pepper get repeated a couple times, but for the most part, you're not going to have a black pepper and potato croquette followed by a dish that has black pepper yogurt. So that definitely lent itself to one of two things happens, right? You either have a dish where, you know, you're using an endive and you use only the sweet center, or you take out the stem and you're only using the tender leaves, and then there's a lot of waste. Or it goes the other way with a lot of chefs where it's like, well, we're using carrots, so we're going to use the carrots that are this size for pieces on the plate, and the ones that are too big we're going to juice and make into a puree, and then we're going to take the tops and dry them and make them into chips. And I've spent a lot of time in those restaurants where that happens, and it can be good or bad, right? Like, just because you can use the tops from the carrots doesn't mean you should use them. A lot of, like, so many people would argue yes, because it's useless waste if it's edible, and it's not. But with a lot of these restaurants that are so operating on subject conceptual and high level and trying to tell a story, if you're trying to share this, if the story is the tenderness and the earthiness of this carrot, the top doesn't really add anything to that, because the top doesn't have the sweetness that the bottom of the carrot does. So what's the point of serving that just because you can? And then you have a beet dish after it where you cut off the tops of the beets and you threw them away. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't match. So that's just something that has been on my mind a little bit recently. But yeah, no repeating ingredients lends itself to a lot of waste sometimes. And I mean, we would joke about it all this time that we would have mise en place salad, which was essentially like all the trim from all of our projects thrown into a salad, dressed in a certain way, and it was all the vegetable trim basically, and that's what we would eat as staff meal.
Right.
So there is a lot of waste sometimes, unfortunately. But so collapsing common tasks. The number one question that I got from working in Norway, my chef would always come whenever he got to a point where he wasn't really in the kitchen that much anymore. But when he would come into the kitchen, the only thing I would see him ask people is like, how are you doing? And what do you have left for big projects? What do you have left for big projects? What do you have left for big projects? I got it so ingrained into me that I started asking the same question to the line cooks when I would go around and ask everybody, because it's so important, right? Where, you have, I'll use that like kimchi rice bowl dish that, you two might make as an example, right? Where it's like, if you have your kimchi ready to go and your rice is, you're about to make your rice and you're going to cheese spice, and that's what you're going to use. And if, as you're cutting those carrots, the only thing you can think about in your head is the chicken's not started yet, that needs to be the next project you do. Like, if to you in your mind it's a big project, like, you need to start with that. And then that goes into like the prep list video that I made, where when you start a day or a menu or a dinner prep project, I guess it's evolved for me to call it multitasking through automation, where, if a chicken stock is on your list of things to do, and the process for that chicken stock is roast bones, and that process takes 45 minutes. I'm trying to like think of a visual representation to it where there's like a timeline, and each, like, I think about like my calendar in my computer has like these blocks and they're all color coded, and like sometimes there's an overlap, sometimes there's a gap. You need to think about how you can get those big projects started where it's like, I could do 45 minutes worth of knife cuts, and then I can do 45 minutes worth of watching those chicken bones roast. Or I could spend 5 minutes, put those chicken bones in the oven, and over those 45 minutes, get all these knife cuts projects done. And it seems so like duh to say it.
No, but it's so hard.
Yeah, but when you're starting off, it's like, so the question that I started to post for myself, and this is after I read one of Tim Ferriss's books, it was, what can I automate? And that was a really big like click for me, whereas prior to that, multitasking was like the goal, which isn't always effective because it's like you can be doing a couple things at the same time, but you're like moving a millimeter in 6 different directions as opposed to like taking large steps in certain directions. So can you know, if you know that you have to boil that beet and then peel it, and then it's going to need to spend 6 hours in the dehydrator, you can't do that 45 minutes before the service starts. Like, that just has to be a priority. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that video. The next one is linked up right here for your convenience as part of the playlist. If you like content like this, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on any new videos. And most importantly, I'm known for publishing my own takeaways as part of most of the interviews that I do, but because I did so much blabbing in this interview itself, I would like to know what your takeaways are. Please let me know down low in the comments. Get some color on that like button, and I'll see you in the next video. My name's Justin Khanna. Have a good one.